Hey, what's going on, my people? What's going on? What's going on? Thank you for tuning in to Prophet Gayu. So in today's video, topic is when living abroad, is assimilation necessary? When living abroad, is assimilation necessary? All right, let's go ahead and talk about that. But first, let me go ahead and put in the intro.
Take it no more, so I left the matrix.
And my money just tripled. I had a good time and it cost me a little. So I found peace, tranquility, faith in my abilities.
I couldn't fake no more, so I left the matrix.
All right, here we go. So, when living abroad, is assimilation necessary? Well, before I answer that question, let me go ahead and give some sort of background information on what I mean by that. So first, when you move to another country, you're dealing with different challenges, right? And some of those challenges vary depending on the country. For example, if you're coming from the United States, and if you were to move to, let's say, the United Kingdom, well, the language of the United Kingdom is English. However, the way they speak English is a little different, but it's still English. The culture, that Western culture, is still very similar to what you will find in the United States. The people, diverse background, different region, people from different cultures in that within that region, and so forth. The system, everything is going to be different. So, is there some level of assimilation necessary to actually live and prosper in that society, in that country? Maybe, right? At some level. In assimilation, all that really means is you're taking your original ideas, your traditional ideas, the ideas from your upbringing, and bringing that to that new country and using that country's ideas and traditions and sort of mixing it with your own to make it fit for you, right? So therefore, that is more or less assimilation. Now, one can say that in the process of assimilation, you actually totally letting go all your traditions and all your ideas that you brought from your old country and just totally adapting the ideas and traditions of the new country. And that's not the case, right? So if one is to think like that, then no, assimilation is not necessary. But in the sense that you actually have to adopt some of the traditions and some of the ideas within that country, whether it's obeying laws or having some knowledge of just the way they do things in that country, then yes, there is some sort of some level of assimilation that's necessary in order for you to get by and make a living within that country, but not to the same level as totally letting go everything you've known in your former country in order to live in that country. So that's not the case. But let me keep breaking down this example. So to get back to what I was saying, coming from the United States, moving to the United Kingdom, there is some level of assimilation. However, it may not be all that different if one was leaving the United States and moving to, for example, the Dominican Republic. Now, in the Dominican Republic, the language is different, right? There is some significant cultural differences. The attitude, the ideas, the average level of education The system itself is different. So it's a very different move. So when you are moving from the United States to the Dominican Republic, there is some significant challenges. Now let's go in reverse, right? So let's look at the Dominican coming from the Dominican Republic, moving to the United States. What are some of their challenges? What are some of the things they have to deal with when moving to the United States? Right? Is assimilation necessary for them? Short answer, yes. At some level, yes. Now, what I mean by that? So Dominicans moving to the United States, they're going to gravitate to Dominican neighborhoods, Dominican families, a significant Dominican population, or not necessarily a Dominican population, a Spanish-speaking population, because that common language, it will be easier. It may be easier for them to adapt within that Spanish-speaking community in the United States rather than a community that does not speak Spanish at all in the United States, right? So that's one of the things they'll be looking for. They'll be looking for immigrant communities, right? Communities that basically have people that have gone through what they're going through or what they're going to be going through, right? So they'll be looking for that community support. So those are some of the things that a Dominican will look for when moving to the United States. Now, yes, they will be bringing a lot of those their traditional Dominican ideas and traditions, etc. But being in the United States, if you are going to work, in almost all cases, you are going to need to know English, some level of English. You will need to know the system. You will need to probably go out and get a certification or some training or whatever the case is, right? So those things are necessary for a Dominican. Hello, Life in Haiti. Thank you for tuning in, Marie. I really appreciate it, Marie. I really appreciate your presence. How are you doing today? So a Dominican moving to the United States will have to go through all those things to assimilate, to adapt. Now, let's go in reverse. Now, take that person from the United States moving to the Dominican Republic. What will they have to go through? Well, some of those same things, right? They will have to pick up the language because most folks here do not speak English. However, there are communities within the Dominican Republic, oftentimes very touristic communities, but these communities where there are a lot of foreigners who speak English. So therefore, that foreigner coming from the United States, moving to the Dominican Republic, will feel more at home or more at ease moving to a community that speaks English, right? Marie, I'm doing well. Glad to be here. Well, thank you for coming. I really appreciate your presence, and I enjoy what you bring to the table. I really like to know your ideas on this topic. So any comments you have on this, I really appreciate, or anything else with that matter. So so an American from the United States moving to the Dominican Republic, there will be some challenges, right? The language is one thing. Also, the system is very different. The way they operate, the way you interact with the businesses and banks and government is just very different from what you're used to in the United States. So with that said, saludo, profe. ¿Cómo está, profe? ¿Cómo está, extra? It's been a while, man. I know I've been gone for a while, man. I've been doing I have not been doing any material at all, man. I've been, doing a whole bunch of things. So I'm trying to get back on track now, especially since I'm moving very soon, moving out of the country, and I'll talk about that later. So when you're doing that, moving from the United States to the Dominican Republic, some of the challenges you're running into is the different system. You would think that, okay, for example, if I were to open up a bank account all I need is these documents. Where in the nationality, it's much more complicated than that. And when you're dealing with the government, it's not as streamlined as you may be used to in the United States. So those are some of the things to keep in mind. So with that said, there is some level of assimilation you need. And the support that a person from the U.S. moving to the Dominican Republic really look for will be within that community they move to. And oftentimes it's much easier to start that assimilation process or that process of establishing themselves in a country by living in a community where others come from the same country that they're coming from, or that speak the same language, or etc. So let's go back around. So when living abroad, is assimilation necessary? Well, at some level it is, right? What do you think, Marie? What do you think? Extrolling, what do you think? Is assimilation necessary when living abroad? Is it necessary? And one thing I do want to say is, I think that a lot of us that come from the United States, we have a lot of interaction with immigrants, people coming from other countries, right? Whether it's Dominican Republic, whether it's some country in Europe or Asia or in Africa, or elsewhere. And one thing we do see that some of us who do not have roots from another country, one thing we do see is that they definitely stand out, right? When you have those people coming from those immigrants or immigrant families coming from another country, they definitely stand out in the United States, right? I know back where I'm from, one thing we knew immediately is that we saw someone who had sandals, right? If you walked around in sandals, you obviously are not from the United States, because, you know, Black folks from the United States do not walk around with sandals, especially when it's not at the beach, and especially when, you don't, ashy feet, for example. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but like, those are some of the things that when I come from, that's so like, okay, that person not from the United States because they're walking around in sandals, they're not on the beach, and they didn't, moisturize their feet, for example. I know, but that is an observation. Another thing is definitely, Marie, we have to be able to mold their culture and not try to have it the other way. Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, even though it's pretty obvious when, for example, when a foreigner's in the United States, they're a foreigner, but also that there are some challenges for them as well, because they're dealing with language differences, cultural differences, and oftentimes they are sort of outcasted in the United States because they're different. Maybe not by their particular communities, but by other communities within the United States. They sort of get that immigrant label, where, hey, you need to assimilate. You need to change the way you speak. You need to, speak English. You need to do this, do that, right? So that's sort of the pressure that they get from society in the United States. Now let's do this the reverse way, and let's look at the Dominican Republic. Are foreigners, such as people coming from the United States, other countries, moving to the Dominican Republic, are they dealing with those same challenges? To get the full cultural experience, you need to assimilate. It doesn't mean you can't be unique in your own way. Exactly. Because you can't change who you are. No way. You can't change who you are. But it's very important that when you move to another country, you got to understand that country, understand the way they do things, so that you can make that country work for you in your own unique way, while still being you, but you still have to have knowledge of that country and how they operate, the language, etc. Right? Like for example, as I was getting ready to say, in the Dominican Republic, people know you're a foreigner, right? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how well you speak Spanish or how well you can put yourself to dress like the average person walking down the street, the average Dominican walking down the street, right? Doesn't matter. They know you're a foreigner, especially when you open your mouth, right? Even you're talking about Dominican Americans or Dominicans with that live in the United States, Americans live in the United States but have Dominican heritage, right? When they come here, they're not Dominican. They are gringo. They still get that gringo label, right? Because the way they speak, they open their mouth, oh, they're not Dominican, right? So that's just how it works there. But even apart from that, when you move here, you're going to be outcasted in some way as a foreigner in Dominican society, and not necessarily in a bad way. Of course, you can look at it from a bad way where they say, okay, you're a foreigner, you got money. Let me separate this foreigner from his money. What's the best way to do that? So you'll feel that, yeah, folks are always trying to get over in that sense. But when you look at it from a cultural sense, right, there is always going to be some sort of challenges you'll have where no matter how much Spanish you speak, doesn't matter if you hold a Dominican passport, right, Dominican citizenship, or if you've been living in the Dominican Republic for the most of your life, you will still not be Dominican simply for the fact because you don't speak like a Dominican or whatever the case may be. So what do you do in that sense? Well, you can't do anything other than the fact that you have to learn the way of the Dominican and the Dominican Republic. You have to learn in order to be able to prosper, to have some sort of way of living in the Dominican Republic, but by being part of society, by being part of the country, you know? And I think oftentimes when you have a foreigner that moves to the Dominican Republic, it's really easy to get lost within that bubble, that foreign bubble that you'll find in a lot of majority expat communities. And being in that foreign bubble can definitely be enriching and fulfilling. However, it sort of separates you from Dominican society and giving you the ability to be able to assimilate in Dominican society in the sense that you learn the Dominican way of things and you learn the language and you learn the best way to balance, being, okay, I'm American and I have these American values and American traditions, and being able to balance that in the Dominican Republic with the Dominican traditions and Dominican way of life. So to go back to the question, when living abroad, is it necessary to assimilate? At some level it is. You can't get around it, right? If you think that you can just ignore, even being in the Dominican Republic, ignoring all that, right? Being Dominican, the language, etc., you are really, really going to struggle in the country. Just like if a person was to move from the Dominican Republic to the United States and they totally refuse to speak English, they totally refuse to assimilate in U.S. society, they are really, really going to struggle because all those external pressures that's like beaming on top of them to get a job, to learn English, to be able to improve your English so you can improve your career opportunities, maybe even get an education. All those pressures are pressures that they did not have in the Dominican Republic that they will have in the United States. And they honestly, it's going to be very difficult for a lot of them to ignore that, right? And folks that really can't take it, they move back to the Dominican Republic. I mean, how many stories have you had heard from folks that moved from the Dominican Republic to the United States, and after a year or so they moved back because it just really they couldn't take it. And it's not because the United States is such a bad place. It's just that it is so different. It has different challenges, and when you are not sort of equipped to be able to adapt and grow from those challenges, then you come back. And that's not just the United States. That's not just the United States. That's anywhere you go to. But I do want to open it up to Maria and Marie and X Strolling and anyone else on the chat if they have any comments on the whole assimilation thing, because I thought this is a quick topic to talk about, because I know I see a lot of people that move to countries and they don't put in the work to really learn about the country, or put in the work to really not just learn about the country, but really learn the system and find a way to assimilate within that system without losing themselves, but in a way that they can still benefit and get a rich experience living in that country. So, any of you have any comments or questions about that at all? Gail, what's good? Gail, what's good, man? What's good? How you doing, brother? How you doing? Thanks for joining in, man. I appreciate it. Yeah. So, and you got any questions about that? Because assimilation, I think that sometimes people look at that with a negative viewpoint, in the sense that, you know, you don't want to assimilate anywhere you go to, because I don't know, I mean, not every country's bad, man. You know what I'm saying? So you're gonna have some negative parts of a country. So that doesn't mean that when you move to a country, or even if it's there, I understand for those folks that move to a country but they're only there for a month, right? I mean, essentially you're there for a month. I mean, you're a long-term tourist, right? So in that sense, you may not want to adapt because you're not going to be there long enough to even put in that work to adapt. You're just going to be there just to get the experience and then move on to the next country. But I'm talking to those folks that when you move to a place and you're there for a long time, is it necessary to assimilate, right? And I think the best way to look at that, if you think that no, you don't need to assimilate, is to look at the country you come from and what folks do when they move to that country. You know, are they assimilating? You know, what are the challenges that they have when they're assimilating? And yeah, so that's all. I just want to get your ideas. But if I don't have any questions or comments on that, Gil, my brother Gil says, but I still try to at least learn what I can and respect the culture even for a short time. Yeah, and that's important, man, because even though people may not be flocking to move to certain countries, those countries still have a lot to offer, and one can really learn from the ways of the people, right? Like, for example, me moving to the Dominican Republic, one thing I really learned from Dominicans that I really like is just their way of really trying to look at the positive side of life, right? Enjoy themselves and enjoying being with family, and really not taking a lot of things too serious. Even though that could be a double-edged sword, it really can be enjoyable. And that's one thing I learned from Dominicans that I really enjoy. So my brother X Strolling, he says, I think that's one of the pitfalls of the North Coast. You are around folks that are American like you. It's amazing that you have folks that have been in the DR for years and don't speak Spanish. Yeah, yo, I feel the same way. And sometimes when you are in the community, in that bubble, you can really enjoy yourself and get a really rich experience living in that bubble. Because look, you make friends, you develop a community, And though you may have thought that, okay, when I moved to the Dominican Republic, at some point I learned Spanish, but when you within that community, and essentially all the folks around you are foreigners that speak English, or if you have Dominicans in your community, they also speak English. So therefore, there is no strong will to even want to learn Spanish, and then you'll find yourself just being in that community, being in that bubble, and then 1 year goes by, 2 years go by, 3 years go by, and you're still in the same position. So therefore, you don't learn Spanish. I mean, it happens. It definitely happens. But I think that that's just a mistake that a lot of folks make when they move to the Dominican Republic. And you also find that as well when you have, like, again, foreigners that move to the United States, and they tend to be in that same position. I mean, how many foreigners you met in the United States that have been there for decades and they don't speak any English, or they speak very little English, right? It happens. And just like how a lot of foreigners come here and they stick to their those bubbles, and they don't leave outside those bubbles, and they only speak English, the same thing happens in the United States. When you have some foreigners come, they'll be in those Spanish-speaking communities, or they'll be in those Chinese-speaking communities, or whatever communities they come to, and they've been there for years and they don't speak a lick of English, and they get by. But when they're doing that, they're really limiting their cultural experience. They're really limiting their potentially their career opportunities that they may find. Business, sometimes they'll have business, and they'll have a small business that their audience, their customers, are members of their community, so they may not feel the need to go beyond that. So, I mean, it happens. My brother Gil says, and unfortunately, they bring the same bad habits that they have back home as well. Yes, that happens. One of the big things that I think a lot of folks need to keep in mind when they move into another country is when they move, they're not wiping their slate clean. I mean, there's some of the same challenges and issues they had in their home country, they're still going to have to deal with in their new country. You know, whether that's dealing with alcoholism, or whether that's dealing with depression, or whether that's dealing with bad money management, or any of those things, health issues. All those things that you were dealing with in the U.S., you still will have to deal with in the Dominican Republic, or whatever country you move to. So therefore, it's very important that you have a plan to continue to address those issues when you move abroad. Yes, Gil, definitely very important. It's definitely something that happens here. For me, I don't live in a expat community here in the Dominican Republic. I live in a residential area where there are a lot of well-to-do Dominicans. There is a American that I know that lives in my building. We've got together a few times and chopped it up. And one thing I keep hearing him say, man, is I need to start learning Spanish. Brother, you've been here a year and some change. You know what I'm saying? What you doing, man? You gotta start learning Spanish. And sometimes you may not, when you live in that bubble, or you live in around people that speak English, you gotta find a way to kick yourself in the butt to force yourself to continue to learn Spanish, or continue to get out and be a part of Dominican society. Not in the sense that you gotta lose yourself in that society, but to be able to learn the customs, meet people, understand the way they do things, so that you can better live within the Dominican Republic. So that's very important, very important. One thing I gotta, there's another YouTuber. His name is Q from the United States of America. The one thing I really like about Q is Q had been here for a while, man, and he kept saying, I mean, I need to learn Spanish, I need to learn Spanish, I need to learn Spanish. And then Q messed around and just said, you know what? I'm gonna learn Spanish. So he just stopped one day and he made himself every day, you know, learning words, learning this, learning that, learning this, learning that. And now the brother, his Spanish has improved. So sometimes you have to really, really look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, what am I doing? What do I need to do to get this done and make it happen? And yeah, it's important. It's also it's necessary. I mean, if you don't, and living in the Dominican Republic, and this goes for any country we're talking about, but if you're living in the Dominican Republic, you have to go to the bank, or you have to go to the grocery store, or if you have to go to La Junta, you know, one like a government office, or you know, dealing with your visa, dealing with your residency, or don't say dealing with if you got a business here, you're dealing with you know, different parts of the government or the business community. You have to learn, you have to know Spanish. You have to communicate in Spanish. And you don't want to have to rely on someone else to translate for you and do the speaking for you, because a lot of things get lost in translation, right? Tone, the stressing on certain words, the individual translation of words. Sometimes people focus on the individual translation of words and not the actual meaning of the phrase or what that phrase actually means or translates to specifically here in Dominican Republic, right? So those are all some of the things that you have to keep in mind when you're moving here, because if you are not learning the language in the country you're living in, you're definitely like closing and closing and closing and closing and closing the circle in which you are able to be a part of, right? My brother Gil says, and the locals respect the fact that you at least make an effort. They don't expect perfection. That's true. That's true. And look, man, even if you don't speak that well, the fact that you can say something and get your point across goes a long way. Yeah, they may clown you on the way you may have some folks clown you on the way you pronounce something or this or that. I mean, look at you funny like for a while, even though you're speaking Spanish and they understand you, they're just amazed by looking at you and seeing you speak Spanish, like looking at you like you're speaking Spanish, right? So, because maybe it may throw them off, but it's still really, really important that you make the effort to speak Spanish. And just like I keep going back to this, but just picture yourself being in the United States and trying to whether it's a business transaction or whether it's just you being in society, someone asking for the directions or whatever the case is. When someone does not speak English, it does make the communication a challenge, right? And also, when you're in the United States, everything is go, 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 go. You don't have a lot of patience for someone who don't speak English. You don't. Be honest, you don't. And if that person doesn't speak English that well, but at least makes their point across by saying whatever few words, it goes a long way. So think about that when you are here in the Dominican Republic or when you are in another country and you're trying to communicate with someone and you do not speak the language, right? Think about that. Think about that. Yeah. Let's see. You don't have any other comments yet? Yeah. So that's basically it. What I want to talk about as far as assimilation goes in this video. One thing I do want to mention is I haven't been doing a lot of videos because I've been taking a little break from YouTube because I've been doing a lot of other things. And one of those things is I am preparing to move. Where am I moving to? I'll say this. Eventually, I'll end up in Mexico, but I am not going directly to Mexico. And when I get to the other places I'm going to before I get to Mexico, you'll see when I get there. But eventually I'll be ending up in Mexico. The point of that move is to basically just take advantage of the opportunities that Mexico has. I've been doing a lot of research this past year and found that, Mexico, though not perfect, has a lot of opportunities as an emerging country in the world, developed country in the world, newly developed country in the world, I guess you could probably say. There's a lot to offer. So that's why I'm making a move there. But before I get there, I'm going to be going to some other places, and I'll be doing some content, doing more lives, and we'll go from there. One thing I do want to mention is I know with my channel, I haven't been very consistent because those things I've been dealing with. But moving forward, I'm definitely going to do a live every Sunday, just as I was doing before. And hopefully I can continue to see some of you on the live streams, bringing in new content, getting some comments, some questions going in that activity. And then we'll continue to go from there. Meanwhile, I'll still be doing some videos on the Dominican Republic and traveling, resorts, hotels, and all that stuff. And that's it. But I do want to thank you all, Gil, X-Strolling, Marie, and everyone else that's been on the line. I want to thank you so much for your activity, your participation, and your support. And I really, really, really appreciate it. I really, really appreciate it. For those of you right now who have not subscribed to Miss Marie from Life in Haiti with Marie, definitely go to her channel, subscribe. Life in Haiti with Marie. Subscribe to her channel. She has some very good content. Definitely an inspiring story from her. As an early age, moved to the United States and then going back to Haiti. Marie, I really would like to have you on my channel to talk about your story. I think your story is very, very important for people to hear, so that, because for me, when I first heard the story, I found it very inspiring. And though it's not all smiles and roses, I think that what you were able to do, moving back to Haiti, and things you've been able to do to help the community is really good. So I would like to have you on my channel. In addition, I want folks to go to her channel and definitely subscribe and check out her content. And again, thank you all for coming on. I got a question here. I think, hey, Profe, how you want to be moving when I'm just about to go to York? Hey, man, originally I was going to move towards the end of the summer, but with things coming along and different forces, I'm going to be moving sooner. However, I'm still going to be coming back every so often to the Dominican Republic because I have roots here, right? I'm in the process of buying property, and I have a business here. So therefore, I have some roots here that I will still be having to come back to with my wife. And now she has family here, so we definitely be coming back every once in a while, but not as often as I think. But definitely, I'll be coming through, man. And if you're still here, if you're here and you're not elsewhere, as I know you've been looking at moving to 2 different places, then I definitely holler at you, man. Because if I come back here, I'll be coming back here to the Santo Domingo area, so we'll definitely be able to get together and kick it, man. And same for you, Gil. I know that your plan, Gil, was still come out here and do part of the year here in Dominican Republic. So, hey, brother, when you come out here, during that time frame, man, let me know, man, because I'll be coming through every so often as well. So yeah, there you have it. Yeah, so that's basically it. That's all I got, fellas, ladies. Thank you for stopping by. I really appreciate your support. And I'll check in with you all real soon. All right. Peace.